The day I buried my husband, my nanny pulled me aside and told me she was pregnant with his baby. I was holding my 2 children in my arms when my world split in half. And that's not even the worst part. Because the truth? The pregnancy wasn't the only secret my husband was hiding. The rain came down like it had a grudge. Umbrellas bloomed black across the cemetery, glossy and trembling in the wind. I held one in my right hand and my son's tiny fingers in my left. I'm Ava Harrington, 34, corporate lawyer, widowed as of last week, and mother to 2 little humans who don't understand why people keep saying sorry for your loss. My kids, Oliver, 5, and Lila, 2, pressed close to my legs. Oliver's tuxedo jacket was slightly too big. Lila's tights were muddy because she'd insisted on jumping in a puddle on the way from the car. Grief doesn't pause for puddles. It just sits in your throat, heavy and unchewed. "Mommy, is Daddy sleeping?" Oliver asked, voice small. I crouched to eye level, the umbrella tilting. "Daddy's not sleeping, baby. Daddy's—" My lips wouldn't form the word. A gust of wind did it for me, pushing the syllable into the world like a dare. "Gone." He stared at the polished mahogany box like it might shiver and sit up. Lila, on my hip now, twisted a curl around her finger. The priest's voice droned, gentle and far away, like a radio in another room. People dabbed tears. I didn't. I was past tears and somewhere deeper, colder, quieter. When you're a litigator, you learn to control your face. When you're a widow, your face controls you. After the final prayer, hands reached for mine, pressed condolences into my skin. "Call if you need anything. You're strong, Ava. You always were. Think of the children." I nodded, kept standing, kept breathing. Then I saw her, hovering at the fringe of the crowd in a rain-dark coat. Madeline. 26, soft eyes, careful movements. She'd started as a babysitter 2 nights a week back when my calendar ate dinners and bath time. She grew into our nanny because she was steady and kind and because my career was a hungry thing that demanded offerings. "Ms. Harrington," she said, stepping closer, voice almost swallowed by the rain. "Can I speak with you? Privately? Today?" I shifted Lila on my hip. "Madeline, I have to." She rushed, breath fogging in the cold. "You'll find out anyway." Oliver tugged my sleeve. "Mommy, I'm cold." "Just a minute, sweetheart." I guided them under the canopy by the graveside and asked my sister to hold the umbrella over the kids. "Stay right here, okay? I can still see you." I kissed Lila's damp forehead and walked with Madeline to the edge of the gravel path, where rainwater ran like ink. She wrung her gloved hands. I'm pregnant." Something shifted under my feet, not the ground. Me. I lowered my voice. "Madeline." "It's Ethan's," she said, so quietly I almost wished I'd misheard her. The name cracked open the air. For a moment, the cemetery hushed. Cars paused, footsteps stilled, even the rain seemed to hold its breath. "It's Ethan's baby," she repeated, eyes brimming. "I didn't want to tell you like this, but you are telling me like this." My mouth had gone dry. My chest, a vice. Over her shoulder, I saw Oliver counting the roses on a wreath, lips moving. Lila clapped at a bird shaking rain from its wings. Life, indifferent and relentless. "Please don't hate me," Madeline whispered. I stared at her, all the hours she'd sang to my daughter suddenly curdling into something I couldn't name. It should have been a scream. It wasn't. It was a lawyer's question, crisp as winter air. "How far along?" 11 weeks. 11 weeks. Before the crash. While I was prepping for a fraud trial and coming home late with fast food and guilt. My throat burned. "You chose today," I said. "Of all days." I didn't choose it. I couldn't carry this anymore. A laugh fell out, one sharp, humorless exhale. "You carried it this long." Her face crumpled. "I thought he was going to tell you. He said—" She stopped herself, hand flying to her mouth. He said what? I asked, voice low enough to slice the rain between us. That he loved me, she whispered, and that he'd fix things. He said he would. The world tilted. Fix things. Fix the baby? Fix us? Fix the lie? My tongue was lead. My eyes flicked to Oliver and Lila, to the casket, to the priest folding his book. I was a woman split into parts. Mother, widow, attorney, betrayed. My phone buzzed in my coat pocket. A calendar reminder. Pick up dry cleaning. I almost laughed again. Madeline hugged her coat tight. I brought proof, she said, fumbling in her pocket. A folded slip of paper fell, landed in the mud at my boot. Recognition prickled over my skin. Ethan's handwriting, the bold loop of the H in Harrington, the way his numbers slanted right like they were hurrying somewhere. I didn't pick it up. Not yet. If someone dropped a life-shattering secret on the day of your partner's funeral, would you confront them there? Or walk away? Tell me in the comments. I'm reading with you. Go home, I said finally, every syllable made of glass. I have 2 children to put to bed. We'll talk tomorrow. I can't. She reached for me, stopped herself. Please. Please be careful what you say in front of them. My jaw worked. That's advice you should have given yourself. I stepped back under the canopy, lifted Lila into my arms, took Oliver's hand. The priest nodded to me with sad, practiced eyes. I didn't look back at Madeline. I didn't bend to pick up the note. Not yet. As we reached the car, Oliver handed me the mud-streaked slip of paper. Mommy, you dropped this. On the back, in Ethan's handwriting, Sunday, 8 p.m., tell Ava. By the time I buckled Lila into her car seat and clicked Oliver's booster, the rain had turned to a fine mist, a gauze draped over the city. Wipers beat time to my heartbeat. The cemetery shrank in the rearview mirror until it was just a smudge of black umbrellas and wet grass. In the quiet, Oliver asked, "Can Daddy come home after the long nap?" I kept my eyes on the road. Daddy's not coming home, baby. But we're going home, and I'm here. Silence. Then softly, okay. At home, the house looked wrong. Grief rewrites rooms. The foyer smelled like lilies, too sweet, too heavy. My heels clicked over tile as I carried Lila upstairs. Oliver trudged behind, clutching his stuffed astronaut. I tried not to look at the family photos along the stairway. Ethan holding newborn Lila, Ethan and Oliver in matching pajamas, Ethan and me on our 10th anniversary, a sparkler fizzing in front of us like a captured star. Bath time was a negotiation. Lila splashed and giggled. Oliver asked if Bubbles could make him a beard like Daddy. When I tucked them in, Oliver made me promise I wouldn't go far. I slid to the floor beside his bed, back against the wall, listening to their breathing slow. That's the thing about kids. They need you in the present tense. Downstairs, the house exhaled. I stood in the kitchen under the 2 bright pendants and unfolded the note with hands that didn't feel like mine. Sunday, 8 p.m. Tell Ava. E. On the other side, an address. Not our home. A small coffee shop in Midtown with a chalkboard sign and pastry case that always looked staged for a magazine. My brain offered a timeline. Sunday night, 1 week before the crash, when I'd been at the office combing through exhibits while Ethan said he needed air. I checked the security app on my phone. With a few swipes, I pulled the camera logs from that Sunday. The nanny cam above the playroom, empty except for scatterings of blocks. The front door camera. Ethan leaving at 7:22 p.m., hand in coat pocket, head down. At 10:08 p.m., he returned, hair damp, expression unreadable, walked straight upstairs, into the shower. When he came out, I'd been asleep on the couch, trial binders open beside me. He'd kissed my forehead. I remembered the warmth. I didn't remember the goodbye tucked into it. My phone vibrated, a message from Madeline. Madeline. I'm sorry. I didn't know how else to do it. I stared at the text. The tiles beneath my bare feet were cold enough to bring the ache up my legs. My thumbs hovered and then moved on their own. Ava, we'll talk tomorrow at 10 a.m. here. while the kids are at school. I set the phone down and it felt like placing a weapon on the counter. I walked to Ethan's office and opened the door. The smell hit me first, cedar and the ghost of his cologne. His desk was neat as always. A pen aligned with the edge, a legal pad. My gift, a joke about converting him to my paper, half filled with notes. I flipped through pages, meetings, a reminder to call his mother, scribbles, app 2 o'clock, an arrow. Plus paternity? The air thinned in my lungs. On the bookshelf, a wooden box we'd picked up at a street fair in Prague. A little indulgence we swore we'd pass to Oliver one day. My hands shook as I lifted the lid. Photos, receipts, a thin silver necklace I'd never seen before, and a sonogram printout dated last week. GA. 10 weeks, 1 day. I pressed a fist to my mouth, fought back the sound crawling up my throat. I sank into his chair. It cradled me like it knew the shape of me. I stared at the sonogram until the lines blurred. A memory surfaced, bright and brittle. Me telling Ethan we should try for a third baby after the trial, and him kissing my palm saying, "Let's get through this first, Av." The soft, practiced dodge of a man who had a secret. My phone buzzed again. Another message from Madeline. "Madeline, he said he would tell you that night. Please don't hate me. I didn't set out to hurt you." I typed, erased, typed again. Words are my trade. Tonight, they were smoke. "Ava, you work for me. You watched my children. So I'm going to make this simple. Tomorrow, you tell me everything. Every detail. Or I will find out without you, and you won't like that version." 3 dots pulsed. Stopped. Started. Stopped. "Madeline, I'll come." I locked the phone and stared at my reflection in the dark window. A woman in a black dress, hair damp from the rain, eyes too old for her face. "You said you'd fix it," I murmured to the empty room. "What did you promise her, Ethan?" Engagement prompt. If you found a sonogram in your partner's desk after a confession like that, what's the first thing you'd do? Call a lawyer, a friend, or the person who confessed? The clock above the mantel clicked to 1:07 a.m. I washed my face, changed into a t-shirt, and lay down between Oliver and Lila. They sprawled diagonally, warm and heavy. Lila's breath puffed against my shoulder. I watched their eyelashes rest softly against their cheeks and felt fury coil around love like barbed wire around a vine. Somewhere between their even breaths and the clock's patient clack, I fell into a shallow sleep. I woke to Lila patting my face. "Mama, pancakes?" "Pancakes," I croaked, because grief is a language you speak between tasks. I made them smiley face pancakes, burnt the first batch, laughed despite myself when Oliver declared, "Daddy would eat the burnt ones. He said it builds character." "Then Daddy had the best character," I said, steadying my voice, "because I burn everything." By 9:15 a.m., they were dropped at school, backpacks bobbing down the hall. At 9:58 a.m., a knock at my door. Madeline stood on the porch with damp hair, a tote bag, and eyes that refused to meet mine. I opened the door and stepped aside. Kitchen. She passed the framed photos like walking through a museum where she knew the ending of every painting. In the kitchen, I poured 2 glasses of water and pushed one toward her. "Start at the beginning," I said. She swallowed, nodded, gripped the glass like it might keep her afloat. "We didn't mean for it to happen." I held her gaze until she looked away. No one ever does. He was kind. He was lonely. You were working late a lot. He noticed I was good with the kids. He said I made the house feel calm." I let the words hang. "When?" "Last fall," she whispered. "After Lila got RSV and we were up all night. He stayed up too, on the couch. He made tea. He sat with me while I held her. Nothing happened then. It was weeks later. He asked me to lunch to thank me. We met at that coffee shop on Sunday nights sometimes, when you were at the office. Just to talk at first." "Just to talk," I repeated, a bitter echo. Her voice thinned. I know how it sounds. It sounds like betrayal with warm lighting. Tears brimmed. He said he loved you. He always said he loved you. He said he didn't know how to tell you because you were under so much stress. I leaned forward, steepling my fingers, letting the attorney in me take the room. Reverse this, I said, voice even. Imagine I sat your brother down and said, I sleep with your sister's boyfriend because I'm stressed. I love her, though. I'm just overwhelmed. Would he pat my head and make me tea? Or would he throw me out of the house? She flinched. He'd throw you out. Good, I said softly. So we agree on the moral math. Her shoulders sagged. Did Ethan plan to leave? I asked. She shook her head. He said he wanted to be a father to this baby, but he didn't want to break your family. He thought, she swallowed. He thought you might accept it. Accept what? I asked, smile tight. His second life? His Tuesdays? The baby he made with the woman I paid to protect my children? I'm not a monster, she whispered. I love them. Oliver asked me how clouds worked yesterday, and I thought of him as my own for a second and hated myself for it. My jaw ached. Do not claim any part of my children with your mouth. She nodded, cheeks wet. I'm sorry. Dates, times, I said, pushing a legal pad toward her. Every meeting, every message, every place you went, every promise he made. I want it all, and I want it now. She stared at the pen. Will you hurt me with this? I'll decide what to do when I know what was done to me. She began to write. The tip scratched the paper like a small animal trying to get out. As she listed the dates, one line snagged my breath. The night before the crash. He said he had to tell you. He said if he didn't, someone else would. I asked, who? Madeline looked up, eyes wide. He didn't say a name. He said, they're done waiting. I felt the words in my spine first, like someone had plucked a low string. They're done waiting. Plural, not she, they. Who is they, Madeline? I asked, keeping my tone level, as if tone could hold the floor steady. She shook her head. He didn't say. I thought maybe a friend or his boss? Ethan didn't report to anyone. He'd built his tech consultancy from a spare-bedroom startup into a boutique firm that audited cybersecurity for companies terrified of headlines. He was the one people waited on. I slid the legal pad back and skimmed her notes. Sunday coffee shop, Thursday park walk after preschool drop-off, 2 hotel receipts. My chest tightened. Afternoons when I'd been in mediation. My eye caught an asterisk. Apartment address scrawled next to it. My pulse ticked faster. An apartment? I lifted my gaze. She winced. I didn't want to tell you that part. Tell me anyway. It wasn't for us, she said quickly. I mean, we met there twice. But he said it was temporary, a place to think. He said it helped him breathe. I stared at the address. It was close enough to our house to be convenient and far enough to be secret. I could picture Ethan choosing it. Modern, neutral, anonymous. Give me your phone, I said. Her eyes widened. Why? Because I pay your salary and because I am extending you a mercy. Don't mistake it for weakness. I held out my hand. She hesitated, then placed her phone in my palm. I turned it over, face down, and set it beside mine. Now, I said, unlock your iCloud. I want the messages he told you to delete. You can't. I can. And I will. Or we can call the police and start a very different kind of conversation, where attorneys stop being hypothetical. Her shoulders slumped. She typed. The messages populated like a time lapse of bad weather. Sweet names at 2 a.m., logistics at noon, apologies scattered like confetti after a parade no one enjoyed. One thread made me pause. Ethan. Sunday, 8 p.m. Tell Ava. Madeline. Are you sure? Ethan. Yes, they're done waiting. I won't let it blow up in her face. Madeline, I'm scared. Ethan, me too. Why didn't he tell me? I asked the screen, but it didn't answer. Maybe he was on his way home to do it when it happened, she whispered. Maybe. Or maybe the crash had been a dark mercy he didn't earn. In the living room, the grandfather clock chimed 11. I stood, the decision forming as naturally as breath. I'm going to that apartment. Madeline blinked. Now? Now. What if... You're coming with me, I said, grabbing my keys and the legal pad. If there's more I need to know, I'd rather not be surprised in someone else's living room. The drive took 12 minutes. The building was stainless steel and glass, the lobby smelling like expensive lemon. I introduced myself to the concierge with the polite efficiency of a woman who knows exactly how to be believed. Ava Harrington, I said. I'm here to see apartment 4C. My husband, Ethan, leased it. I slid a copy of our marriage certificate across the desk. I'd thrown it in my bag like an instinct, and folded grief over my voice. He passed last week. Sympathy softened the man's posture. He clicked through a system. I'm so sorry, Mrs. Harrington. Yes, 4C. Here's a temporary key card. The elevator rose with the kind of grace that made you feel judged. At 4C, my hand hovered before I slid the card. I glanced at Madeline. She looked like a paper doll in a storm. I opened the door. I had expected mess. Instead, curated calm. A sofa in a non-committal gray, a coffee table with a single glossy book, a kitchen with 2 wine glasses drying on a rack. No photos, no clutter, a life in parentheses. Did you ever bring my children here? I asked without turning. No, she said, too quickly. Never. I believed her. She loved them, and that was complicated but true. I moved through rooms like I was learning lines in a play. Bedroom, unwrinkled sheets, a watch on the nightstand, Ethan's backup watch. Bathroom, his razor, a second toothbrush. What color? Blue. Always blue. In a desk drawer, a folder labeled with Ethan's tidy block letters, if needed. I sat. My hands were steady. Inside the folder, a letter addressed to me, sealed. A life insurance policy update. A printed email thread about a client with an NDA stamped across the top. A USB drive. And a legal doc. A custodial declaration naming me as primary guardian for Oliver and Lila in the event of incapacitation or death. Updated 2 weeks ago. My pulse skittered. I thumbed the envelope with my name. For a moment, I couldn't open it. My body rebelled. The last thing he'd written to me was in my lap, and the first thing he hadn't said was in my chest. I broke the seal. Ava, if you're reading this, something went wrong before I could say what I should have said months ago. I made a terrible mistake. I don't expect forgiveness. I only ask that you hear me out because the mess I made isn't just personal, it's professional, and it could touch you and the kids if I don't do this right. I was going to tell you on Sunday. I wanted to tell you before the other shoe dropped. There are people who will want access to things I have. I don't want them near you. The drive in this folder has what you'll need. Password is the place we had our first real fight. You'll know. Don't trust. The last line broke off mid-sentence. Ink blotted. My breath fogged the paper. Don't trust who? I whispered. Let me see, Madeline said softly, hovering at the threshold like the room might bite. I folded the letter, slid it into my bag. No. She flinched, nodded. I picked up the USB drive, turning it over. It was unremarkable. Black, slim, forgettable. I looked at the printed email. A client name I recognized. A company recently in the news for a breach rumor they'd aggressively denied. Ethan's notes in the margin. Internal hazard. Not external. Trace to board member. Check Alex files. Alex. Ethan's partner. My stomach tightened. We'd known Alex since college. He'd given a toast at our wedding that made even my stoic father laugh. Did Ethan mention Alex to you? I asked. Madeline's brow furrowed. Only that they were arguing a lot. He said Alex hated secrets, but he was good at keeping them. She hesitated. That didn't make sense to me then. The apartment felt smaller, the air thinner. My phone vibrated. A new text from an unknown number. Unknown. You should stop digging, Ava. Grief can make people clumsy. I stared at the words until they separated and came back together again. Who is it? Madeline asked. I turned the screen so she could see. She went pale. Did Ethan ever get messages like that? I asked. She nodded slowly. Once. He said it was spam. It's never spam, I said, slipping the phone into my pocket and sliding the USB drive into my bag. If you found a secret apartment and a letter that ends with "don't trust," who would you suspect first? The business partner, the nanny, or someone else entirely? As we left, I looked back at the room one last time. The sofa, the glasses, the quiet. A diorama of a life he never let breathe daylight. We stepped into the hall. The elevator chimed. My phone buzzed again. Same unknown number. Unknown. Check the garage camera before you go, counselor. I looked at the ceiling camera bubble reflected in chrome. Whoever they were not done. We reached the garage. On Ethan's assigned spot under the fluorescents, a white envelope sat tucked beneath the wiper of a car I'd never seen him drive. Inside, a single photo of me and my kids at the cemetery yesterday. On the back, in Ethan's block letters, a warning I recognized by the pressure of the pen. If you're reading this, they're close. The envelope felt heavier than paper should. I turned the photo over again, tracing the words, "they're close," like they might rearrange themselves into something less terrifying. My thumb lingered on Ethan's handwriting, the thick downstrokes, the sharp finish of the Y, like he'd been in a hurry. Who would take this? Madeline whispered, peering at the image. The better question, I said, sliding it back into the envelope, is how long have they been close? The garage's fluorescent hum pressed in. I scanned the rows of parked cars, sedans, SUVs, one silver sports car with a hood that gleamed under the lights. Shadows curled at the edges of every vehicle, thick enough to hide anyone. Madeline crossed her arms. Do we call the police? I looked at her. And tell them what? That my dead husband's mistress and I found a creepy photo in a car he never told me about? She flinched. When you say it like that, I say it like that because that's how they'll write it in the report. I started toward the exit, heels clicking. Come on. The concierge glanced up as we passed. I gave him the kind of smile that ends conversations. In the elevator's mirrored walls, I caught my own reflection. Hair pulled tight, eyes bright with something between fear and fury. Behind me, Madeline looked small, her tote clutched like a life vest. Once outside, the mist had thickened into a damp, rolling fog. I unlocked my SUV and slid behind the wheel. Madeline hesitated before getting in. You're not dropping me at my place? She asked. No, I put the car in gear. You're coming to mine. Why? I glanced at her. Because until I know exactly who they are, I'm not leaving you alone. And because if you've been followed, I want you where I can see you. Her mouth pressed into a thin line. You don't trust me. Good, I said. Then you understand the situation. If you were in my shoes, would you keep the mistress close to protect your kids, or send her away immediately? Let me know in the comments. I'm curious who would take the risk. By the time we reached my street, the fog was thick enough to smudge the houses into pale shapes. My porch light glowed like a beacon. Inside, I locked the door, set the alarm, and checked the back latch twice. Guest room, I said, leading her upstairs. You'll stay here. In the morning, I'm calling someone who can get answers faster than the police. Madeline perched on the edge of the bed. Who? My brother, I said. Her brows rose. The one in the Marines? I nodded. Retired now, But let's just say he doesn't need a badge to get people talking. I left her and went to check on Oliver and Lila. They were tangled in sleep, Oliver's arm flung over his sister's waist like he was already guarding her. The sight nearly undid me. I brushed hair from Lila's forehead, whispered, "I've got you," and pulled the door until it was nearly closed. In my own room, I set the USB drive and the photo on the nightstand. My laptop hummed to life, and I plugged in the drive. A password prompt blinked back at me. The place we had our first real fight. I typed, Charleston Inn, wrong. The lake house, wrong. I closed my eyes, replaying the memory. A kitchen in a rented cabin, a burned pan, Ethan accusing me of caring more about my job than us, me accusing him of never understanding ambition. The place had a name. Briarwood. The screen unlocked. Folders filled the desktop. Client files, personal, Alex, Madeline. My stomach dropped at the last one. I clicked Alex first. Inside, financial statements, meeting notes, and a recording labeled Board Call 312. I hit play. Alex's voice. "If this leaks, we're both finished. Contain it. Ethan. I told you I've got it handled. Ava doesn't know anything. Alex. She's a lawyer, Ethan. She'll find out. Ethan. Then we make sure she finds out nothing that can hurt us." The call ended with a click. My knuckles whitened on the mouse. Madeline's voice startled me. "What is it?" I turned. She stood in the doorway, hair damp from the shower, wearing one of the guest room's oversized t-shirts. "Close the door," I said. She did. I clicked Madeline. Photos, messages, a voice memo of Ethan. "If anything happens to me, Ava will take care of you. She'll hate you at first, but she's fair. She'll understand." My laugh was sharp. "Understand what? That you built a parallel life and expected me to babysit it after you died?" Madeline's cheeks flushed. "I didn't ask for—" "You asked for exactly this when you stepped into my marriage," I snapped, then caught myself. "But you're here now, which means you're either bait or you're a witness. Either way, we need to figure out which before they make their move." Her eyes darted to the window, where fog pressed against the glass. "Do you think they're watching?" I looked at the photo on my nightstand. "I don't think," I said. "I know." The USB icon blinked in the corner of the screen, like it was keeping its own secrets. My phone buzzed again. Same unknown number. This time just 3 words. "The children next." The words, "the children next," burned on my phone screen like they'd been carved there. I read them twice, then a third time, my pulse pounding in my ears. My thumb hovered over call for 911, but something in me hesitated. Police reports are slow. Police protection is thin. And whoever sent this already knew how to be close without being seen. "Who is it?" Madeline's voice cracked. I locked the phone and met her eyes. Someone who just made a mistake. Her arms wrapped around herself. "We have to call the police." "No," I said, sharper than intended. "We have to call someone who will actually do something before this turns into a news headline." By 6 a.m., my brother Grant was standing in my kitchen in a hoodie, cargo pants, and that same unshakable stillness he'd worn since Afghanistan. He hugged me once, hard, brief, then crouched to Oliver's level when the kids patted in, rubbing sleep from their eyes. "Uncle Grant," Oliver grinned. "Hey, buddy. You taking care of your sister?" Oliver nodded solemnly. "Always." Grant's gaze flicked to me at that. Always. I poured him coffee while Lila chattered about pancakes. Madeline lingered in the corner, holding her mug like it might anchor her. Grant's eyes took her in, one eyebrow ticking up. "This her?" he asked me quietly. "Yes," I said. He nodded once, no judgment, no sympathy, just cataloging. "You have the messages?" I slid him my phone. He scrolled, his expression unreadable until he hit the last one. Then his jaw tightened. "They're close," he read aloud. And the children next. He set the phone down. Whoever this is, they've been inside your perimeter already. That's not just a threat. That's reconnaissance. Madeline's face drained of color. Meaning? Meaning they've watched you, he said flatly. Long enough to know patterns. When you're home, when you're not, when the kids are at school. That's planning. If you got a message threatening your children, would you stay put and fortify your home, or disappear before they could find you? I want to know what your instincts say. I told Grant everything: the funeral, the confession, the note in Ethan's handwriting, the apartment, the USB. His eyes narrowed when I mentioned Alex's name. Alex Rourke? Yes. He swore under his breath. I've heard that name before. Not from Ethan, from someone in D.C. 2 years ago. What context? He shook his head. Doesn't matter yet. Just means this isn't just about a fling. This is leverage. And you, he jabbed a finger toward Madeline, are part of it whether you meant to be or not. Madeline swallowed. You didn't think, Grant cut in. That's the problem. I stepped between them. We need a plan, not a lecture. Grant leaned on the counter. First, you don't go anywhere alone. Not you, not the kids. Second, I want a copy of everything on that USB. Third, he glanced at Madeline again. She stays where you can see her, at least until I know if she's bait. I nodded. Grant pulled out a small black device and started sweeping the kitchen. What is that? Madeline asked. Bug detector, he said. If they've been in here, they might have left ears behind. We found one in the living room, tucked under the mantel. My stomach flipped. How long? I asked. No way to tell without lab work, Grant said, pocketing it, but long enough to get comfortable. By mid-morning, I had called the school and told them Oliver and Lila wouldn't be in for a few days. We closed blinds, locked every door. The house felt less like a home and more like a bunker. Grant sat at the kitchen table with my laptop, copying files from the USB. This folder labeled Alex, he muttered, is a gold mine. Financial transfers to offshore accounts, shell companies, and your husband's notes about a breach that hasn't gone public. Which means? I asked. Which means if this gets out, Alex, and maybe others, go down hard, and your husband. He paused. Probably knew that made him a liability. Madeline shifted in her seat. So this isn't just about me? Grant's look was cold. You're the sideshow. This is about money, power, and who controls both. But congratulations. You're the useful distraction that kept Ava from seeing it sooner. Her lip trembled. I didn't step in this time. That afternoon, while the kids napped upstairs, I opened Ethan's letter again. My eyes kept snagging on the unfinished line. Don't trust. Grant leaned over my shoulder. Anyone come to mind? I thought of Alex, of Ethan's mother, icy and controlling, of Madeline weeping at my table. My mind made a circle and landed back on Alex. My phone buzzed again. Same unknown number. Ask her about Tuesday nights. I looked at Madeline. What happens Tuesday nights? Her eyes widened. Nothing. I stay here. Don't, I said. Don't lie to me in my own kitchen. Her voice dropped. Sometimes I go out just to get air. But Ethan knew. He gave me cash, said it was for groceries, but she looked at her hands. I used it to see someone. Grant's gaze sharpened. Who? Her next words landed like a hammer. Alex. Grant and I locked eyes across the table. If Madeline was telling the truth, then my husband's business partner, the man who toasted us at our wedding, had been with both of us in different ways. And if he was part of they, then Tuesday nights might have been the real beginning of the end. It took everything in me not to slam the mug on the counter. Alex? I repeated, keeping my voice flat. Madeline's fingers tightened around her glass of water. It wasn't like, you slept with my husband's business partner while carrying my husband's child, I cut in. You're running out of ways for this to not be like something. Grant leaned back in his chair, arms folded. Name, time, place, every Tuesday night. Madeline's chin trembled. A wine bar on 8th Street, the back table. He said it was safer there. Safer from what? I asked. She shook her head. From being seen with me in the wrong place. From people who might misunderstand. Grant's voice was low. Safer from Ava, you mean? Madeline swallowed. Sometimes he asked questions about Ethan, about the USB, about whether Ethan ever mentioned a vault. I exchanged a look with Grant. He nodded once, the silent kind that means we've got our first pressure point. By the next morning, I was standing outside Rourke Cybersecurity Consulting in a black coat, hair twisted into a knot. The glass building gleamed in the winter sun, all sharp lines and expensive ambition. Grant had insisted on coming, but I told him no. If this is going to work, Alex has to think it's just me, grieving widow, still gullible enough to be managed. I walked through the lobby and straight to the receptionist. Tell Alex Rourke Ava Harrington is here, he'll see me. 5 minutes later, I was ushered into an office with floor-to-ceiling windows and a view that made power look easy. Alex stood behind his desk, smiling like we were still friends. His suit was flawless, his cufflinks catching the light. Ava, he said warmly, coming around the desk. I was going to call. I'll save you the trouble, I said, taking a seat without being asked. We're going to talk about Tuesday nights. The smile froze at the edges. Excuse me? Wine bar on 8th. Back table. You and Madeline, while she was pregnant with my husband's child. His brows drew together in a perfect imitation of confusion. That's absurd. I barely know the girl outside of holiday parties. I leaned forward. That's the thing about lying to a lawyer, Alex. I can smell it before you've even swallowed the first word. He chuckled, low and practiced. Grief does strange things, Ava. Makes you see ghosts. Grief didn't put her there every Tuesday night. Grief didn't make you ask about Ethan's vault. You did. Something flickered in his eyes. Just for a second, but it was there. I don't know what you've been told, he said slowly, but Ethan and I had disagreements. That doesn't mean... It means you wanted something from him, I said. And when you couldn't get it from Ethan, you went to someone easier to manipulate. If you caught your partner's closest friend lying to your face, would you keep pressing in public or wait to corner them in private? Let me know what you'd do. Alex's jaw tightened. Careful, Ava. There are things about Ethan you don't want to know. I'm already living with one of them, I said, standing. And here's the part you'll appreciate. If you so much as text Madeline again, I'll subpoena every account you own and drag you into discovery so fast you'll wish you'd never heard of the word vault. I headed for the door. His voice followed me. You think you're protecting those kids? You're not. I turned. That sounds like a threat. It's a warning, he said smoothly. And here's mine. Don't open that drive without me. My hand tightened on the handle. Too late. His smile was thin. Then you've got less time than I thought. Back in my car, my phone buzzed with a new message from the unknown number. He's not your only problem. Look inside the bear. I frowned, scrolling through my mental inventory. Then it hit me. Oliver's stuffed astronaut bear, the one he'd been inseparable from for weeks before Ethan's death. I called Grant. Meet me at the house, now. When we got there, Oliver was on the living room floor, building a spaceship from blocks, the bear tucked under his arm. Hey, buddy, I said gently. Can Mommy borrow Astro for a minute? He hesitated. You'll give him back? Of course. Grant and I stepped into the kitchen. He slit the seam under one arm with his pocket knife. Inside, a small, black, thumb-sized tracker. GPS, Grant muttered. They've been on your kids the whole time. Before I could answer, the tracker beeped. Once, twice, 3 times, and then went dark. Whoever had been watching just switched to something else. And if they'd been tracking my children, they could already be close again. The dead tracker sat on my kitchen counter like a piece of shrapnel. Grant kept staring at it, jaw locked, like he could will it into giving up its secrets. "They were in my house," I said, voice low. "They were on your kid," he corrected. "Which means this isn't just intimidation. This is operational." Madeline lingered by the doorway, hands twisting in the hem of her sweater. "I swear, I didn't." I turned to her. "Save it. At this point, you could be a plant, a pawn, or just stupidly unlucky. None of those options make you innocent." She flinched. "You think I'd put Oliver or Lila in danger?" "I think you've already done worse," I said. "And I think you haven't told me everything." Grant stepped in. "We can argue guilt later. Right now, we have 2 jobs: secure the kids and figure out what they want before they make a move." I nodded. "We take them somewhere off the grid." "Bermuda House?" Grant suggested. I shook my head. "Too obvious. If Ethan ever mentioned it to Alex, it's burned. We need somewhere no one knows but us." "If you knew someone had been tracking your kids, would you vanish immediately or try to confront the threat head-on first? Tell me in the comments. I'd probably do what you wouldn't." Grant's phone buzzed. He glanced at it, then held it out to me. "Unknown number. Same as mine." "TikTok counselor, we'll take the nanny instead." Madeline gasped, color draining from her face. "They're bluffing." Grant shook his head. "No, this is leverage. They know Ava won't risk letting you be taken before she gets what she needs out of you." I stepped closer to Madeline. "Here's your chance to prove you're not with them." "How?" she asked, voice trembling. "You're going to help me set a trap." Her eyes darted between me and Grant. "A trap?" "Yes," I said. "We'll make them think they're getting you, and instead, they'll walk straight into us." By noon, the plan was in motion. Madeline would go to the wine bar on 8th Street, the Tuesday night haunt she'd shared with Alex. She'd sit at the back table, just like before, alone. Grant and I would be parked across the street with backup hidden inside. "If anyone shows," Grant told her, "you keep them talking until Ava walks in. No running, no tipping your hand." She nodded, though her hands trembled as she zipped up her coat. The wine bar smelled like oak and old secrets. Madeline slid into the corner booth, ordered a glass of red, and pretended to scroll her phone. From the SUV, I watched through a scope, my pulse matching the ticking of the dash clock. At 7:12 p.m., a man slid into the booth opposite her. Not Alex. Mid-40s, weathered face, leather jacket, eyes that scanned the room once and then locked on hers. Grant's voice came through my earpiece. "Not a random. That's muscle." I took a breath and walked in. The man's gaze flicked to me immediately. "Counselor," he said, smiling like a shark. "Guess you got the invitation." I slid into the booth beside Madeline. "I don't recall an RSVP. You've got something that doesn't belong to you." "Funny," I said. "That's exactly what I was going to tell you." His smile widened. "We don't want the kids. We want the drive. You give it to us, and this all goes away." I leaned in. "You know what happens when you corner a mother, right? She stops negotiating." His eyes narrowed. "Bad choice." Grant's voice in my ear. 2 more just came in. Time to move." The front door swung open. Alex stepped inside, scanning the room, and saw me. His expression didn't change, but his hand dipped into his coat. I didn't know if it was for a phone or a gun. Alex's hand lingered in his coat, and for a moment the room was too quiet. Wine glasses glinted under low light. Somewhere in the back, a cork popped, the sound sharp as a gunshot in my chest. Grant's voice crackled in my earpiece. "Stay seated. I'm 10 seconds out." Alex walked toward our booth, the man in the leather jacket leaning back to let him slide in beside him. Up close, Alex smelled faintly of the cologne Ethan used to wear. The detail turned my stomach. "Evening, Ava," Alex said smoothly, as if this was just another client dinner. "I see you've met Marcus." The leather jacket smirked. "We were just talking about the kids." My hand curled into a fist under the table. "If you so much as say their names?" Alex held up a palm. "Relax. This doesn't have to be ugly." "Ugly?" I asked. "You've been threatening me, tracking my children, and trying to steal something my husband died to protect. I'd say we passed ugly weeks ago." Alex tilted his head. "We? Interesting word. That mean you and Madeline here are working together now?" Madeline's breath hitched. "I'm not working with anyone." "Not anymore," Marcus said. "But you did, sweetheart. If you were sitting across from someone who knew every secret you've been trying to uncover, would you push for answers right there? Or stall until you had backup? I want to know how you'd play it." I forced my voice steady. "What's on the drive?" Alex's smile thinned. "Enough to ruin a board, enough to make people desperate. Your husband was supposed to bring it to me, Ava. Instead, he hid it. And then he died. That's inconvenient." My nails bit into my palm. "You're saying Ethan's death wasn't an accident?" Alex didn't blink. "I'm saying inconvenient people often stop being a problem." Madeline turned to him, eyes wide. "You told me it was a car accident." "That's because you're easier to use when you think you're a victim," Alex said without looking at her. Her hand shook as it gripped the edge of the table. Grant's voice in my ear. "2 exits covered. On my signal, duck." Alex leaned forward. "Here's my offer. You give me the drive tonight, and you and your kids live your lives in peace. Or you keep playing detective and things get smaller for you." I matched his stare. "Smaller?" "Funerals, custody battles, things you don't want to imagine." I let a beat stretch, then said, "You really should have led with that if you wanted me to cooperate." A flash of movement in my periphery, Grant bursting through the side door. "Now!" he barked. I shoved Madeline down into the booth as Grant grabbed Marcus by the collar, slamming him into the table. Wine splashed, glasses shattered. Alex shot to his feet, his coat shifting. Definitely a gun this time. I lunged across the table, grabbed his wrist, twisting hard until the weapon clattered to the floor. Grant kicked it under the booth. Marcus threw a punch that grazed my shoulder. I drove my elbow into his ribs. The bar erupted. Shouts, chairs scraping, someone yelling to call the police. Grant had Marcus pinned when Alex wrenched free and bolted for the door. Without thinking, I ran after him. Outside, the fog was so thick it felt like another set of hands tugging at my coat. Alex sprinted toward a black SUV idling at the curb. "Stop!" I shouted. He glanced back once, smirking. "You don't want to know who's really pulling the strings, Ava." "Then tell me." He yanked open the SUV door. "They already have your kid's school schedule." The car peeled away before I could grab him. I stood in the empty street, chest heaving, Grant's footsteps closing behind me. "Did you hear what he said?" I asked. Grant's jaw was set like stone. "Yeah. And if Alex isn't the top, that means we're dealing with someone bigger. Someone who knew Ethan, the business, and your family." The fog seemed to press in tighter, and in my mind, a face flickered. Someone I hadn't suspected in years. Ethan's mother. Back at the house that night, I found a new envelope slipped under the front door. Inside, a single sentence in her handwriting. "Come to me, Ava, before they do." The envelope's words sat in my palm until they stopped feeling like paper and started feeling like a summons. "Ethan's mother," I said to Grant, pacing the kitchen. "She's the only one who's ever had the kind of access Alex is scared of. To him, to Ethan, to me." Grant's eyes narrowed. "And she's the only one who could make a threat feel like a family obligation." Madeline hovered by the doorway. You think she's part of they? I turned to her. I think she's the one holding their leash. By dawn, Grant had arranged a meeting. No police, no backup. Just the three of us at her estate on the edge of town. I left the kids with a neighbor who owed Grant a favor, swore them to secrecy. The Harrington estate loomed through the fog like something pulled from a portrait. Columns, marble steps, manicured hedges that seemed too neat to be natural. The front door opened before we could knock. Evelyn Harrington stood framed in the doorway, her silver hair pulled into a chignon, her eyes sharp as a scalpel. "Ava," she said, her voice smooth as glass, "come in, and bring your entourage." Inside, the air smelled faintly of lavender and something older, the kind of wealth that seeps into wood. She led us to a sitting room and gestured for us to sit. I didn't. "You sent the note," I said. "Yes." She poured tea like we were discussing weather. "Because you've been dancing around the truth, and time is running out." Grant crossed his arms. "Then say it." She looked at him, then back at me. Ethan discovered something on Alex, and on two board members of a client company. They were funneling money through offshore accounts, using cybersecurity breaches as cover. It was going to explode, but Ethan made a mistake. "What mistake?" I asked. Her gaze slid to Madeline. "He let sentiment distract him. She was supposed to keep him calm, not complicate things." Madeline stiffened. You put me there?" Evelyn sipped her tea. "I placed you in a position to be useful. What you did with that was predictable." My stomach turned. "You knew about the affair." "I encouraged the proximity," Evelyn said without flinching. "Because Ethan trusted you too much, Ava. You would have told him to go public. That would have been dangerous for all of us." I took a step closer. "So you had him followed, threatened me, tracked my children." She set her cup down. "I warned him. I told him to hand over the drive quietly. He refused. And then the crash." She let the sentence drift like smoke. "Was it an accident?" I asked. Her eyes were unreadable. "Does it matter?" "It matters to me." A silence stretched, heavy and deliberate. "No," she said finally. "If you discovered your in-law was behind your partner's death, would you take the evidence to the police immediately, or handle it yourself? I'd like to know which way you'd swing." Grant's hand brushed mine. A silent breathe. "Where's the rest of they?" he asked. Evelyn smiled faintly. "You've met them, Alex, Marcus, and one or two others who have no idea I'm the reason they're still breathing." "You wanted me here to what? Join you?" I asked. "No," she said, rising. "To tell you that you're out of time. If you don't hand over that drive by midnight, they won't come for me. They'll come for your children." That did it. The part of me that was widow, lawyer, daughter-in-law fell away, and only the mother remained. "You made one mistake, Evelyn," I said quietly. "You thought threatening me would make me hand it over." Her head tilted. "And it won't? It will make me destroy it." Her lips pressed into a thin line. "You wouldn't." I smiled without warmth. "You know what happens when you corner a mother? She stops negotiating." We left without finishing the tea. Back at my house, I slid the USB drive into my laptop, copied the contents to a secure cloud Grant controlled, then crushed the physical drive with his multi-tool until it was a pile of twisted plastic and metal. "You're not giving her anything?" Madeline asked. "No," I said, "but the evidence still exists, in enough places that if anything happens to me or my kids, it all goes public." Grant nodded. Dead man's switch. That night, as I tucked Oliver and Lila into bed, Oliver whispered, "Are we safe now, Mommy?" I kissed his forehead. "Yes, baby. We're safe." Downstairs, my phone buzzed. Unknown number. "You win, for now." I deleted it without reading it twice. Life has a way of showing you who people really are, sometimes too late. But survival isn't about what they do to you. It's about what you decide to do back. If you were in my shoes, what would you have done? Tell me in the comments, and if you want more stories like this, of betrayal, revenge, and the fight to protect what matters most, subscribe to Flame and Fate Chronicles. Your support keeps these stories alive.